Hello everybody, welcome into another lesson. Today we are going to solve variable equations with rational numbers. So it's going to be pretty much like solving your normal variable equations, only you're going to have either decimals or fractions. So let's get started with our first one here. We have y plus 7.2 equals 21.9. Well, of course, we want to get the y by itself to solve for it. We have a plus 7.2. That means we need to do minus 7.2 in order to get the y by itself. So you have y plus 7.2 minus 7.2 is equal to 21.9 minus 7.2, because what you do to one side, you got to do to the other. So 7.2 minus 7.2 is 0. That leaves y by itself. Now we got to figure out what 21.9 minus 7.2 is. I just know it's going to be 14.7. That would be 14.7 would be your answer. So y is 14.7. I could have put it into the calculator, but I did that one in my head. So really these aren't bad. They're just like your conventional variable equations. Alright. We have 4.7 equals a plus 7.1. So 4.7 equals a plus 7.1. First, it would probably help if we switch these around, put the variable expression on the left-hand side, and then put the 4.7 on the right-hand side. I don't know about you, but that tends to help me a lot. Alright, so we have a plus 7.1. Well, we need to do a minus 7.1 in order to get a by itself. So if a plus 7.1 minus 7.1 equals 4.7 minus 7.1. So 7.1 minus 7.1 is 0. You're left with a all by itself. Now we need to figure out 4.7 minus 7.1. Which I will do my handy dandy calculator. Comes to negative 2.4. So A is going to be equal to negative 2.4. That's exactly what you get, negative 2.4. Alright. Now we have a fraction one. We have 2/3 equals 1/8 plus b. First thing I would do, switch these around, put the variable expression on the left-hand side. You'll have 1/8 plus b equal to 2/3. Then by the commutative property, you could switch the b and 1/8 around. I would do that. You'll have b plus 1/8 is equal to 2/3. Okay. Well, we have b plus 1/8. That means we need to do minus 1/8 to get b by itself. So b plus 1/8 minus 1/8 equals 2/3 minus 1/8. Alright, well 1/8 minus 1/8 is 0. You got b by itself. So b is equal to 2/3 minus 1/8. Well, we need to get a least common denominator of 3 and 8 in order to be able to subtract this. The least common denominator of 3 and 8 is going to be 24. So in order to make that 3 into a 24, you got to multiply by 8, which means you got to multiply the numerator of 2 by 8, which will give you 16. So you'll have 16 24ths minus, now you need to convert that 8 into a 24, which means you got to multiply by 3, which means you multiply the numerator of 1 by 3. So now you have 16 24ths minus 3 24ths, which would end up giving you b equal to, what's 16 minus 3? 13. b equals 13 24ths. That's exactly what you would get. B equals 13/24. And it doesn't reduce any further, so you got your answer to B. It's 13/24. So yes, it's probably a good thing we reviewed fractions yesterday, because these are coming up in variable equations now today. As I said, fractions and decimals, they're here to stay. They're not going anywhere. Alright, so we have m plus 7/12 is equal to negative 5/18. Alright, so m plus 7/12 equals negative 5/18. First thing you want to do, of course, get m by itself, so subtract 7/12 from the left-hand side. You'll actually have to do it to the right-hand side, too, since you did it to the left. So you have m plus 7/12 minus 7/12 is equal to negative 5/18 minus 7/12. Alright, so you have 7/12 minus 7/12, that's 0. You'll just get m by itself. Now m is equal to negative 5/18 minus 7/12. Well, we need to find the least common denominator between 12 and 18. I can tell you that's going to be 36. So what you're going to have here is to get the denominator 18 into 36, you got to multiply by 2. Which means you got to multiply that negative 5 in the numerator times 2. You'll get negative 10 minus. Then you have to turn 12 into 36, which means you multiply by 3, which means you got to multiply that 7 in the denominator times 3. You'll get 21. Alright, so now what you're left with is m equals negative 10/36 minus 21/36. You have the same denominator, you can subtract. So m is going to equal, what is negative 10 minus 21? That's negative 31. So you'll have negative 31 over 36. So m equals negative 31 over 36. That's what you would get for your answer. Alright. So we have 3 3/4 plus n equals 6 5/8. So alright, so we got 3 3/4 plus n equals 6 5/8. Well, I would do the commutative property here and switch the n and 3 3/4 around. That's personally something I would do. I find it easier to have the variable being on the left. That's just me. You don't have to. It's just personally for me, I find it easier that way. You might too. So this could be changed into n plus 3 3/4 equals 6 5/8. First thing I would do, change your mixed numbers into improper fractions. So you'll have n plus, now let's deal with 3 3/4. So 4 times 3 is 12 plus 3 is 15. You'll have n plus 15/4 is equal to, let's change a 6 5/8 into an improper fraction. 8 times 6 is 48 plus 5 is 53. So what you're left with is n plus 15/4 equals 53/8. Okay, what you got to do now, you want to get n by itself, you want to subtract 15/4 from both sides. So you'll have n plus 15/4 minus 15/4 is going to be equal to 53/8 minus 15/4. Alright, so 15/4 minus 15/4, that's 0. You get n by itself. N is going to equal 53/8 minus 15/4. You need to find the least common denominator of 8 and 4, which in this case would be 8. So 53/8 can be left alone. It's already in the least common denominator form. Minus, now we need to convert that 4 into an 8. What should do that? You multiply by 2. So that means you got to multiply the numerator of 15 times 2. You'll get 30. So what you're left with is 53/8 minus 30/8. Now they have the same denominator. We can subtract. 53 minus 30, well, that's going to be 23/8. So 23/8 is one acceptable answer. But we need to get this into a mixed number. How many times does 8 go into 23? It goes in twice. So you'll have 2 for your whole number. 2 times 8 is 16, so you have 7 more than 16, so you have 7 left over. Your answer in mixed number form would be 2 7/8. That's exactly what you get, is 2 7/8. So 23/8 or 2 7/8, either answer is acceptable. All right. We got y plus 1 1/3 is equal to 3 1/18. So y plus 1 1/3 equals 3 1/18. Well, first thing I would do, convert your mixed numbers into improper fractions. So you'll have y plus, now 3 times 1 is 3 plus 1 is 4. So you have y plus 4/3 is equal to, all right, what's 18 times 3? That's going to be 54 plus 1 is 55. That's 55/18. Okay. So you have y plus 4/3 equals 55/18. Now we need to subtract 4/3 from both sides. We want to get the y by itself, so you'll have y plus 4/3 minus 4/3 equals 55/18 minus the 4/3. Alright, so 4/3 minus 4/3 means that's gone, it's 0. You'll get y by itself is equal to 55/18 minus 4/3. Well, we need to find the least common denominator of 3 and 18. In this case, it'd be 18. So you can leave your 55/18 alone. That's already the least common denominator for that fraction. But 4/3, in order to convert 3 to 18, we got to multiply by 6, which means you have to multiply the numerator of 4 by 6 as well, which would be 24. Now, these both have the same denominator because you have y equals 55/18 minus 24/18. Therefore, you can do the subtraction. So y is equal to 55 minus 24, that's 31. You get 31/18. So that's one acceptable answer. The other acceptable answer we need to get is into a mixed number. We need to figure out how many times does 18 go into 31? Or it goes in once. So 1 times 18 is 18. You'd have 13 left over. So the other acceptable answer, the mixed number, is going to be 1 13/18. That's exactly what you get, is 1 13/18. So yeah, as I said, fractions are going to continue to come up. Fractions and decimals. They are not going away anytime soon. Alright, back to a little bit of an easier one. X minus 5.3 equals 8.1. So we have x minus 5.3 equals 8.1. Okay, we want to get x by itself. We have a minus 5.3, so that means we need to add 5.3. So x minus 5.3 plus 5.3 is equal to, what you did to the left side, you got to do to the right. That'll be equal to 8.1 plus 5.3. All right. So negative 5.3 plus 5.3 is 0. You're leaving x by itself. X equals 8.1 plus 5.3. Well, that'd just be 13.4. So your answer to x is going to be 13.4. So that really wasn't too bad. All right. N minus 4.72 equals 7.52. So we got n minus 4.72 equals 7.52. Well, we have minus 4.72. We need to add 4.72 in order to get rid of that 4.72 and get n by itself. So we have n minus 4.72 plus 4.72. Why am I doing another plus? I need to make that an equal. Is equal to 7.52 plus 4.72. Okay, so you have minus 4.72 plus 4.72. That goes to 0. N is now by itself. All you got to figure out is what is 7.52 plus 4.72. Well, let's do that in our calculator. 4.72 plus 7.52 is 12.24. So that means n is equal to 12.24. That's exactly the answer you get. N is 12.24. All right. All right, so we have n minus 3/8 equals 1/6. So we got n minus 3/8 equals 1/6. Well, we have a minus 3/8, so we need to add a 3/8 to get rid of the 3/8 and get n by itself. So n minus 3/8 plus 3/8 equals 1/6 plus 3/8. All right, so you have negative 3/8 plus positive 3/8. That means that goes to 0. N is now by itself. We need to figure out what 1/6 plus 3/8 is, which means we need to find the least common denominator between 6 and 8, which I could tell you is 24. So we need to convert that denominator of 6 into a 24. You have to multiply by 4 to do that, which means you got to multiply the numerator of 1 by 4. You would get 4 plus, now you got the 3/8. We need to convert that 8 into a 24. In order to do that, you got to multiply by 3, which means you got to multiply the numerator of 3 by 3. You get 9. Now that we have the same denominator, we can proceed to add these. So 4 plus 9, well, that's 13. Denominator stays 24. 13/24 reduces no further, so the answer to this is n equals 13/24. All right. So let's see. We have x minus 2/5 equals negative 8/15. So x minus 2/5 equals negative 8/15. Well, what we got to do here to start off with, we want to get x by itself. We have a negative 2/5, so we need to add 2/5 in order to make that happen. So we have x minus 2/5 plus 2/5 is equal to, we got to do it to the right side too since we did it to the left. That'll equal negative 8/15 plus 2/5. Okay, so we have negative 2/5 plus positive 2/5. That goes to 0. That means x is now by itself. Well, over here we have negative 8/15 plus 2/5. We need to find the least common denominator between 15 and 5, which we know would be 15. So that means we can leave the negative 8/15 alone. That's already in the denominator we desire. Now, we want to convert the 2/5, we want to convert that denominator into a 15. In order to do that, you got to multiply by 3, which means you multiply the numerator of 2 by 3, you get 6. Now that we have the same denominator, because you have negative 8/15 plus 6/15, you can proceed to add these. So negative 8 plus 6, well, that's going to be negative 2. So you'd have negative 2/15 for your answer, and it doesn't reduce any further, so the answer we're looking for is negative 2/15. That's exactly what we would get. All right. So we got b minus 1.5 is equal to 4 1/4. So b minus 1.5 is equal to 4 1/4, okay? First thing I would do, convert these mixed numbers into improper fractions. So you'll have b minus, now we have 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. So you'll have b minus 3/2 is equal to, let's deal with 4 1/4. You'll have 4 times 4 is 16 plus 1 is 17 is equal to 17/4. So we got b minus 3/2 equals 17/4. Well, we have minus 3/2. We need to add a 3/2 in order to make the 3/2 disappear and get b by itself. So b minus 3/2 plus 3/2 is equal to 17/4 plus 3/2. Okay, so now we have negative 3/2 plus positive 3/2. That goes to 0, leaving b by itself. Now we need to figure out 17/4 plus 3/2. We need to get the least common denominator of 4 and 2, which would be 4. So that means you could leave the 17/4 alone. But the 3/2, however, we need to convert that denominator of 2 into a 4. In order to do that, you multiply by 2, which means you got to do that to the numerator of 3. Multiply by 2, you'll get 6. Now that we've achieved the same denominator of 4, you may go ahead and add these. So b equals 17 plus 16, well, that's 23 over 4. So one acceptable answer is 23/4, but you want to get it into a mixed number. 4 goes into 23 how many times? It goes in 5 times. 4 times 5 is 20, so you'll have 3 left over. So the mixed number would be 5 3/4. So you either have 23/4 or 5 3/4. Either of those answers is acceptable. All right. I have about 7 more, then we're done. So let's see. 7/2 equals r minus 5 2/3. Now let's make that a little bit bigger, shall we? R minus 5 2/3. So 7/2 equals r minus 5 2/3. I would just switch these around since these are equal. I'd make the left side your variable side, so you'd have r minus 5 2/3 equals 7/2. Now the very next thing I would do, convert your mixed numbers into improper fractions. So you'll still have r minus, now we deal with the 5 2/3. 3 times 5 is 15 plus 2 is 17. You'll have r minus 17/3 is equal to, let's deal with 7.5. 2 times 7 is 14 plus 1 is 15. would be equal to 15 halves. Okay, so you have r minus 17 thirds equals 15 halves. So you have minus 17 thirds on the left side. If you want to get r by itself, you got to add 17 thirds. So you'll have r minus 17 thirds plus 17 thirds would be equal to 15 halves plus 17 thirds. Okay, so on the left side, negative 17 thirds plus 17 thirds, that goes to 0. You'll just have r by itself now, but we still have to deal with the 15 halves plus 17 thirds. We need to find the least common denominator of 2 and 3. In this case, that would be 6. So we need to convert that 15 halves to have a denominator of 6. Well, in order to convert 2 into 6, you multiply by 3, which means you got to multiply that 15 by 3. You'll get 45. Now we got to deal with the 17 thirds. We want to convert that 3 into a 6, which means you got to multiply by 2. Okay, so which means you got to multiply 17 by 2, you would get 34. Now these have the same denominator of 6. You got 45 6 plus 34 6. You can go ahead and add these up. So r would equal 45 plus 34. That's going to be 79 6. You would get 79 6 for one answer. That's acceptable as an improper fraction. But you also want to get a mixed number. So how many times does 6 go into 79? Well, it goes in 13 times. You'd also get 13. 13 times 6 is 78, so you'd have 1 left over. You would get 13 and 1/6 as another possible answer for your mixed number form. It'd be 13 and 1/6. So there's those. Alright, I'm down to 6 more. Some slightly easier ones. So we have 4.1p is equal to 16.4. 4.1p equals 16.4. Well, we have 4.1 times p. We need to divide by 4.1 in order to get p by itself. But what you do to one side, you got to do to the other. So 16, let's see, 4.1's on the left side will cancel out. You'll just have p by itself is equal to 16.4 divided by 4.1. Well, I happen to know that that's going to be 4. So p equals 4. That's what you would get, p equals 4. Yeah, these type aren't too bad. I'm going to have to put a bunch of new markers up here soon. Alright, we have negative 0.4y is equal to 2. Okay. Well, we have negative 0.4 times y, which means we got to divide by negative 0.4 to get y by itself. But we got to do it to the right side also. Negative 0.4. Well, the negative 0.4s would cancel. You'd just be left with y by itself. Now we need to divide 2 by negative 0.4 to get y. So 2 divided by negative 0.4, that's negative 5. So y is equal to negative 5. Okay, we're down to 4 more. We're on the home stretch. 8 equals 2/3 times d. 8 equals 2/3 times d. First thing I would do, switch these around, put your variable on the left-hand side. you'll have 2/3 d equals 8. Okay, so we have 2/3 times d. We want to get d by itself. If we remember, if you multiply a fraction by its reciprocal, it becomes 1. So you're going to have to multiply that 2/3 d. You'll have to multiply that times 3/2. Multiply by its reciprocal, you'll get 1. But what you do to the left side, you got to do to the right. Alright, so we got to multiply both sides by 3/2 to get d by itself. While the 2's and the 3's will cancel on the left-hand side, you'll just have d by itself. D equals 8 times 3/2. Do we have anything 8 and 2? We have a factor of 2 between 8 and 2 that can cancel. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. What you're left with is 4 times 3 for d, which means d is equal to 12. So the answer for d is it's going to be 12. I got 3 more, and then we're done. Alright, easy one here. We have 1/5 times t is equal to 9. So we got 1/5 times t equals 9. Well, again, whenever you have a fraction, just multiply by its reciprocal. The reciprocal of 1/5 is 5. But you got to do it to the right side also. So the 5's will cancel out. You'll just be left with 1t, which is simply t. T equals 9 times 5. That's 45. So the answer is t equals 45. I have 2 more. Four equals negative 1/8 q. 4 equals negative 1/8 q. I would start by switching these around. Put your negative 1/8 q on the left-hand side. Put your 4 on the right-hand side. It's the same expression. It's just easier to have the variable on the left usually. So now you have negative 1/8 q equals 4. Well, again, we have a fraction, a negative fraction at that. We need to find its reciprocal to multiply it by to get q by itself. The reciprocal of negative 1/8 is negative 8. So you got to multiply both sides by negative 8. Okay, well, the negatives are gone. The negatives are gone. That just leaves 1q by itself for q. 4 times negative 8 is negative 32. So the answer is q is equal to negative 32. Alright, one last problem. Negative 6 equals 3/5 a. Well, first switch them around again. Have 3/5 a on your left-hand side equal to negative 6. So we have 3/5 times a. We want to get a by itself. You have to multiply by the reciprocal of 3/5 in order to make that happen. So the reciprocal of 3/5 is going to be 5/3. So that means you got to do it to the right-hand side too. Multiply by 5/3. Alright, so the 3's cancel on the left, 5 cancels on the left. You're just left with a by itself. A equals negative 6 times 5/3. Well, negative 6 and 3 both have a common 3 between them. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Negative 6 divided by 3, that's going to be negative 2. So you're left with negative 2 times 5. So therefore a, since it's negative 2 times 5, that'd be negative 10. So the answer to a is that's going to be negative 10. That's what you would get. So really, dealing with decimals and fractions are kind of just like dealing with regular whole numbers with variables. The only thing is you have properties of fractions you got to deal with. But if you're good with adding and subtracting fractions and then multiplying by reciprocals to cancel numbers out, you got this. So this was it for the fractions side of it. Next lesson, we're going to start our ratios and proportions unit. So the next lesson will it'll be easy. We'll just be defining ratios and setting up some ratio problems for the next lesson. So I hope everyone has a good day. Take care.